Hello, friends, and welcome to the next episode of the Pulling series. Today, we're going to talk about contesting pulls. Now, in the past, we talked about how to do them, why they're good, how to use different camps, all of that. But if pulling is so good, why would I just let the enemy do that to me, right? Like, oh, you want to win the lane? Go ahead, right? No, we're going to go stop them. And same, like if we try to pull, the enemy at some point will learn, like, hey, I don't want them to do that. They're going to go stop you. And this is what contesting pulls is about. I've broken this into two sections. So, can we stop the enemy from contesting us at all? This way, we get to do whatever we want and we get the full benefits out of the pull. So, this is ideal. But at some point, the enemy will learn to come contest you. So then, what do we do? Can I stop them from doing this? Or like they are contesting it, so how do I get the most out of this situation? We're going to talk about all of those and from both perspectives. So whether you are the person trying to pull the camps or the enemy has pulled, now what do you do? So whether you're a 4 or 5 position, this will be good to know. And in fact, it's good for the cores to know as well, because contesting pulls really kind of does require both heroes in the safe lane or both heroes in the off lane to sort of work together, do their part to make a pull happen. So in a pub game, maybe it's just random what you're going to get. But if you ever play with friends, maybe share these ideas with them because it's much easier to do if you're both on the same page. But you'll see that as we get into it. Now let's start at a real basic level. What is contesting? So the first part is to stop a pull from happening at all. Odds are, if you're in this situation, it means equilibrium is good for you. You're in a good spot in the lane. You're pretty happy with how things are going. And so, let's just keep this going, right? Things are working out. So the enemy will probably try to pull. If we can stop that, then that's good because now things will continue the way they were going. And we are still happy. They are still sad. And if they do get a pull off, maybe it's not the end of the world. Maybe you can still do something, but it's probably a little good for them. And if you've watched the previous episodes, we did talk about like the different effects of pulls. So if you can predict how it's going to happen and you decide, you know what, I don't want that to happen. Now you can go and try to stop the pull from happening. The next part is that they do get the pull off. Maybe you weren't ready. Maybe they did stop you. Whatever happens, the pull is going off. Now, how do we get the most out of that? Because the benefits of a pull were that you tried to deny resources from the enemy. So if I can at least prevent that from happening, equilibrium may shift, but at least we still get a good amount of resources out of the pull, and then we're not too far behind in that regard. So what are our options to still get a lot of resources out of pulls? That's the second part of contesting. If the enemy knows you're pulling, they will come to contest you. That sounds really obvious, but that's the first thing we need to talk about. If you're the support and all you ever do is play in the lane, let's get these creeps off. Oh, whatever, it happens. They come chase you. I play the lane, blah, blah, blah. And then, oh, it's time to pull, so now I leave. This is a little suspicious from the enemy's perspective because everyone knows about pulling. They may forget the pull timings, but they should know the pull timings. So if the only reason you ever leave the lane is to pull, well, that's suspicious, and the enemy 4 support is going to wonder, like, why did Bane just leave? Let me go follow. So instead, what you want to try to do is mix in randomly just moving around the lane. So I was here before, now I'm going to come and approach the lane this way. That means I disappeared from their vision for a few seconds, but oh, I just showed back in the lane. I'm not doing anything suspicious. Oh, sometimes I hide in these trees, and then guess what? Oh, I just pop out and hit axe again. I'm not doing anything that weird, right? And that means later, when I disappear again for a little bit, they think, oh, I bet he's just wrapping around the trees again. I'm going to go move over here so he can't hit me. But actually, I was doing a pull. And here I am. And now by the time they realize, okay, it's actually been a few seconds since Bane's disappeared. Maybe I should go check. But guess what? I have successfully pulled this creep wave now. And he may get over here, but it's a little late for him. Where the heck did I send him? He's over here, but oh, the pull has already happened. So he may get some resources at this point, but he didn't really get to stop the pull. And depending how slow he is to react, maybe you have a stacked camp, maybe you're using the hard camp, maybe it's stacked, then maybe all the creeps are dead already, So that's why it's really important to dodge in and out of sight. Oh, Joke's about to die. Dodge in and out of sight when you're playing the lane. You don't have to do it too much, right? You don't spend all your time doing that, but just every now and then mix it up. Oh, I'm behind these trees. Where did I go? Just kidding. I'm I'm just back out here. I'm so crazy, right? That means they won't know for sure what you're up to. But if you're always in the lane, always in their sight, and then you walk away, they're just going to follow you. Even if they're not paying attention to what time it is, they're just going to be like, where's Bane going? Let me go check. He might be doing that pull thing. And it may not even be time to pull. You know, they just follow you anyways. So constantly come in and out of sight. Another important concept to know is that cores never want to miss last hits, if possible. So if we want to pull, something you can do intentionally or not, sometimes it just happens, is that you actually shove in the wave. Maybe you just attack the creeps a bunch, maybe you have spells to use, but if you build up a big wave like this, and then let's say I was in position to pull, is Axe going to come contest my pull? No. You know why? Because he has to farm these creeps. He will not, and if he does, it's perfectly good for you. If he leaves here, he misses all of these last hits, which means for sure Axe has to be here. And that means Jug can choose to also be here perhaps, or he could help zone out the 4 support over here while I do the pull. Either way, we are forcing the enemy core to do something, right? Axe has this many creeps on him. Where can he go? He can't leave these creeps. He must get last hits. Now, at some point, some cores will drag that creep wave with them to the pull, and in which case, you've now got a party going on with like both creep waves here in the camp. That happens. Let's not worry too much about that. You're just gonna like play there now. But many times, people will simply walk the creeps back to their own tower. It could be good for them, honestly, but this is what they will do. They will keep the creeps here, and that means they are here. They will not be here. They will not be here. The 4 support might go over, but you have a core to help zone that support away while you do the pull. And heck, after you do the pull, you can swap roles. You can be like, okay, Jug, you go get the last hits, and I'll zone the Earth Shaker away. Now, Earth Shaker might be willing to walk past you, but is he going to walk in between the two of you, and now you're both going to hit him? Now what's going to happen? He may be getting some XP here, but you're probably going to kill the Earth Shaker. So he's not really going to do this either. He's going to stay away, and this is how we can prevent the enemy from even being able to come to the pulls. By forcing one of them, the core most likely, to be busy with creeps, and then we zone the other one away 2v1. If a pull does happen, the enemy pulls a camp, how do we start to get resources out of it? The first one I want to talk about is experience, and to show you guys again the rough experience ranges. So here is the small camp. Let's say the safe lane pulls the small camp. If you are, for example, the 4 support, how do I start by getting experience? I need to stand somewhere in this green circle. And you'll notice that means I can still stand quite far away, and I can probably do this relatively safely. So even if I'm not confident in walking all the way over here during a pull, I can still stand somewhere here and like watch from afar, like, oh, hey, you guys are pulling. Well, I'm over here. I'm getting some experience, right? This is the first level of contesting, at least getting some experience. So we may fall behind in gold, but if our levels stay similar to the enemies, we might still be able to kill them and then start to recover some of that gold later. But if we get completely denied all resources, gold, and experience, then we're definitely going to be behind, and it's going to be a lot harder. So step 1 is to get experience. Now, what if they're in the hard camp? Here we go. This is the camp that's more likely to get contested by both sides. So if you're the safe lane support, right? The enemy off lane has pulled this hard camp. It's very scary to contest this because usually they're stronger than you. So even just standing here, which is very safe, you may not be able to see the camp because the trees block your vision, but you are at least getting experience. And like, they're probably going for the last hits and denies, so they're standing here. So this is a very safe place to be. You don't have to be all the way up here, putting yourself in danger where you might get killed. You may have to do that if you want the gold, but for experience, you can stand all the way back here. Now, even in the safe laner, keep this in mind. If you know they're pulling and there's still some creeps here and you're like, well, I can't walk all the way over here, I still have to be here, try to stand somewhere in between. Try to cut these trees down if you have a quelling blade, things like that. Because that way, you're still able to get last hits in the lane, but you're also close enough to absorb some of the experience from the hard camp. Same applies if you are the off lane, right? If the safe lane has pulled this camp, this is why it's so hard for the safe lane to use this camp efficiently. because the offlane gets to like stand right here. The tower's like barely out of sight of this picture, but they're like within XP range. They're getting last hits, all of that. This is why the hard camp tends to favor the offlane a bit. But I wanted to remind you guys, this is the XP range for the Radiant camps. On the dire side of things, here is the small camp XP range. So if you are, say, the 4 support and the enemy has pulled this small camp, you can even stand like anywhere out here and at least get experience. Maybe even down here near the river, the staircase, because that's pretty safe. If they come chase you, you just walk back into the river towards your own side, a very safe place to be. And you're at least getting experience. If you are, say, the 5 support who has pulled and then the enemy come bullies you away, they're standing over here, keep in mind you should still stand at least somewhere over here, maybe like further down too, because you can see what's happening if you're standing somewhere here. This is still pretty safe as long as you keep your distance. You won't really get any last hits probably, but we're getting experience. The hard camp side, here's the XP range. So the 4, the 3, they get to stand somewhere here, pretty close in the lane, and get experience from the hard camp. The 5 support, if the enemy has pulled, you probably stand somewhere around here, and this is pretty safe for you. But get a rough idea for these XP ranges, rewind if you need to, because you want to stand near the edge a bit to, it doesn't matter how close you are, right? As long as you're within this range, you will get experience. So that is step 1 to contesting, at least get experience. As for actually stopping a pull from happening, if the enemy has yet to do the pull, you can do something very similar to Creep Aggro, where you attack the enemy hero or issue an attack command within acquisition range of the neutral creeps, and you will draw aggro away. So this is good to know because it's more effective than this, which is that most people will like attack the neutrals, and sometimes that works, but it doesn't always work. So what you can do a little more consistently is to issue an attack command on Earthshaker, like so, and it will draw the aggro away. Even if your attack doesn't actually launch, it guarantees that they will switch aggro to you because they're trying to defend the Earthshaker from your attack. I don't know why they're coded like this, but they do. You don't have to be in range. Let me show. So if I do that, oops, I was going to do it for Bane. But you'll see Earthshaker can draw aggro. When I switch to Earthshaker and I issue an attack command on Bane, they switch to Earthshaker. This is more consistent than trying to auto-attack them away. Sometimes it doesn't work. You see, like, that guy paused a little bit. Like, in this case, it kind of has, and now I feel silly. I'm trying to get an example here. Yeah, there we go. So you see this big bird still chased Bane, whereas the other 2 switched to Earthshaker. But if Earthshaker had instead issued an attack command on me, he would get all the aggro of this whole camp, like so. So that is something you all should know when whatever pull's going on, whether it's Radiant, whether it's Dire. If you're close enough within 500 units of these neutral camps, and you see the enemy trying to do a pull, this would be the pull timing, aggro Earthshaker and pull away. Now, Earthshaker can actually do the same thing if I had the micro to do it, to like quickly grab the aggro back from you, but it's tough. And so if you're still trying to get a pull, that might be something you want to know how to do as well. If you see them draw your aggro, don't kill me. If you see them draw the aggro away, then you have to quickly issue an attack command on an enemy hero, and that will get the aggro back to you. And you only need 1 creep to follow you to get the pull off. So, yeah. Understand this mechanic, because whether you're trying to stop pulls or complete them, this will be good for you to know. Issue an attack command. It can be really quick. You don't have to do the actual attack, so just attack the Earthshaker and then immediately like continue to try to do your pull, something like that, or walk away from where the pull's happening. Whatever you need. Now, let's say the enemy is in position to stop your pull. Should you just give up and go home? Probably not. In extreme cases where you really have to help your carry, maybe. But in most situations, and I highly encourage you guys to experiment with this, you should try anyways. Because 1, they may not know what I just told you about, that they should attack you to draw all the creep aggro, and you might still get 1 creep to go through and complete the pull. You only need 1 creep to go by. He can tank all the others, and you just get the 1 guy. But even if they do know that, make them do it. Especially if you're a long-ranged hero and they're a short-ranged hero, make them draw creep aggro because they will just take extra damage. Ancient Apparition, very long-range hero. I can do a pull without taking any damage if I want to. But if he's here in my way, it's not going to happen. But guess what? He's going to start taking some damage. And if he just immediately walks away, well, then maybe I can draw Creep Aggro again and attempt the pull again. So he kind of has to stay here and draw attention from the creeps. And guess what? While they're hitting him, I'm going to start hitting him. And then I'll walk away if he, like, comes over again. And all the while, these creeps are aggroed to him if he stays in the area because they're not out of guard distance. And eventually they'll leave guard distance. Guess what? They'll still hit him for 5 seconds unless he just keeps running away. So that's why you should still try to do a pull, because you might just end up making him take a bunch of damage. Even if he walks away, this is like 50 extra damage he just took. I'll take it. That's half a tango. A little less, you know? So go ahead and just try to do pulls, because they might mess it up, and if they don't, they will have to take damage for stopping your pull. If you are a melee hero, though, maybe you don't do this, because this could easily swap on you. So let's say let's pretend Ancient Apparition is the melee hero, and he tries to do a pull, and then suddenly this guy comes contest, stuns you, and now you're trying to run away while taking a bunch of damage. Especially if you're against like a ranged 4 support who can contest the pulls while you take damage. In that case, maybe you shouldn't try to do the pull, because you might end up taking a bunch of damage, and the whole time you knew, like, I probably won't get this pull off. So, fortunately, many supports are ranged, so there's a good chance you will get to attempt this pull and force the enemy to take damage. But if you are a very short ranged or melee support, and you don't have a lot of health regen to spare, maybe you don't attempt to pull when you know the enemy will stop you. But if you're ranged and you have a lot of health regen, go ahead, just give it a shot. You might get a pull off, or at the very least, you will force the enemy to take a good amount of damage. Now, actually, this is the perfect time to talk about the next possible scenario, which is that sometimes you can bait the enemy. So they're over here to stop you from pulling, and they're positioned in a way that you can't really do the trick we just talked about. And in fact, the Earth Spirit is going to come bully me out a little bit. What you can try to do is bait them, and hopefully they forget they're not paying attention, into aggroing your creeps. Because this sort of does what you need it to do for a pull, right? A pull, you need to, like, get these creeps to leave the lane and then draw them to one of these camps. So once they aggro to the Earth Spirit, he can't just walk through the lane because there's a tower there. So he has to drag it around this way, which gives me a chance to do this small pull. And if he wants to stop it, he has to tank all my creeps. So he doesn't really want to do that. Or he has to, like, run it through this way, which gives me a chance to use this camp, which may not be ideal, but it's another pull opportunity. Or he has to just walk this way with the creeps to, like, get them to rejoin the lane. And in the whole time, I'm going to hit him. Because if he turns around to trade with me, there's a whole creep wave hitting him. This happens to be the catapult wave, but even if it's not, like, he will very rarely, Earth Spirit, I'm not talking about him specifically. Almost any hero in the early laning stage will never win a trade against you if they are tanking 4 of your creeps. It's just, no one is strong enough to do that. So for example, you might like, oh no, he's hitting me, haha. And then you like walk in and immediately he has to leave and you are going to chase him as much as possible. Use spells if you have anything to like stun him or slow him, because every time you slow this guy, you will get him to take damage. And you see what happened there naturally without me even trying? We accidentally aggroed some of the creeps to a pull. Look, there we go. It happened again. Now Earth Spirit's like, oh no, he's pulling. I have to go back. But guess what? You hit him in the meantime, so now he's half health. And now, you know what? While he tries to be here for the pull, you just keep hitting him, and he doesn't really have a choice. He has to leave. So if you can ever bait the enemy into aggroing your creeps, that's usually pretty decent for you. Sometimes they don't mind. Like, sometimes their actual goal was to drag creeps around like this. But if that was their goal anyways, then it's good that you're around to attempt to like draw creep aggro or to hit them a couple times anyways. So I think it's pretty good for you. Most people will be a little bit aware. Well, I guess it depends on your MMR, but most people will be aware to like not walk too far in. But especially if you're a ranged hero, this can work out because they don't think you're in range. They'll like attack you, and then suddenly you walk into your own creeps. Let's pretend like Earth Spirit's on the Radiant. And the ranged hero wasn't thinking about it, didn't see the creep wave coming in, so they launch an attack at Earth Spirit. Earth Spirit like runs in, rolls into the creeps, that projectile from the support will then aggro the creeps over, and there you go. You now bully that guy out because he has a bunch of creeps on him, and there's no way he can fight you unless you're like at a very low health already. But if you're like remotely healthy, then if you're like at a similar health level to the enemy support, then for sure you're good. And like, for example, here we go. There we go. I just like do a pull while he's trying to pull through, and now it's like, oh shoot, what do? I can't really contest. You know, so whether it's this camp, anytime the enemy accidentally draws your creep aggro, which maybe you can bait out, fantastic for you. Let's say the pull happens. What do you do? We got to pause here because there are a lot of different considerations I want to run through with you guys. So, first off, I know we're in the safe lane 5 and 4, but it doesn't really matter what camp it is. The philosophies are always going to be the same. First, what can we get out of this? This, like, once the pull happens, it's kind of like laning, but now you're just by a camp. So we're going to go for some last hits. We're going to fight with the enemy over them. And that's kind of obvious enough, I think. So if you're in the area, yeah, go for last hits if you can, with an exception, which we're about to get to. But first, some considerations. So how do I safely do this? Because if you were to die, this would be the worst case scenario. Not only did this enchantress pull to get some experience and gold for herself from the small camp, she also denied some of these lane creeps from us, and then she killed me, right? That's like worst case scenario. So if you're ever worried about being killed because of some matchup difference, the enemy is much stronger, whatever, keep your distance. Think back to those XP ranges we talked about. You can keep, like, you can be all the way over here and get some experience. And, like, there's not much risk of dying if the 5 support's here and you're over here, but you're still getting some experience at least. So keep that in mind. Next, let's talk about where you can position. So I want to keep my distance for experience. What are some advantages whoever pulled has? Because if Enchantress pulled, these are her creeps. She sees what these creeps see. So if she is scared of the enemy 4, maybe the offlaner as well, maybe they came over, she can stand like way over here, which is way away from the lane, so the enemies don't really want to chase that far. And she's behind trees, so they can't really see her. But she could be like right here and snipe a couple last hits. And they won't really know because if they chase behind the trees, they're not going to see her. So let me demonstrate here. Oops, not that button. Like, let's say Mirana tries to go back here. Uh-oh, you'll notice I can't see through trees. And now I don't know how to get last hits because I can't see anything. I don't know what's going on here. This restricts the, let's say, the contester to be in a very specific area usually. Somewhere where they can see the camp and the creeps. Whereas Enchantress gets to be behind these trees and in a safer position. I don't know. Is she here? Is she here? Is she here? I can't hit her because I just can't see her. And if I chased over, that might put me in a compromising situation way back here, far away from the lane and my own tower of safety. Same concept applies at this hard camp or this camp or this camp. You know, let's use this hard camp since we can actually see here. If the off lane pulled this camp, they can stand in the river and still see the camp because their creeps are here. So there is uphill mischance, but they can use spells to try to steal some last hits, which I'll mention now is usually worth doing. Maybe not for a small camp creep, but if you can land multiple last hits with one spell or get the big creep, that is usually worth using a spell for. So that, yeah, that's part of contesting. We'll throw it in right there awkwardly. But the 4 position, you know, going back to what we were talking about, the 4 position, the offlaner, they get to stand like back here. They get to stand near their tower, and they're very safe, absorbing some XP. And as they see the creeps getting low, they get to run up, hit it, and then run away. And they get to do that because it's their creeps providing vision. But whoever's contesting, they don't see that. So they can't stand over here because then the trees block their vision. They can't stand, well, they can stand here and they know they're getting XP, but they're not going to get any last hits because they can't see anything. So keep that in mind with your positioning. When you want to just absorb XP, you can do things like this and stay like way away. But if you want to get last hits, if you want to try, there's a bug flying in my face. I'm trying to make a video. If you want to try to do that stuff, like keep in mind these different considerations where the 4 support can be contesting from safely when you come up here. Like say you're the stronger 5, you zone them away, but then they suddenly snipe the last hit because you didn't expect it. There's only so much you can do about that, but you can at least be aware that it's a possibility. Now let's get back to this. Let's say a pull happened. What can you do besides just like going for last hits? If you want the pull to not do very much, kill the small camp. Right? Doesn't that make sense? Like, if this camp dies, they'll go back to the lane. So, as Mirana, you could use a spell if you want, or you could just auto-attack a bit. Things like that. But as you get to the last creep, so, there we go. Last creep here, you want to be careful. You have to ask yourself, am I okay aggroing these creeps? Because if you aggro creeps in the lane, you have your own... Well, let's do it up here. If you accidentally draw the creep aggro from these two creeps, you get to A-click your own creep and de-aggro, and then you're good to go. But over here, you'll notice I don't have any creeps. So let me just show you. I get in the last hit. Uh-oh, what's this? 2 melee creeps are on me. The range creep was far enough away, so he's going back to the lane. I am in a weird situation now. I have to run straight back to lane to de-aggro these, and if I go anywhere else, these creeps will follow me. So, if the position 5 can threaten your life and you don't have much mobility and you're not very strong, maybe you're low health, you have to be very careful when you get to the last neutral creep in a pull camp, because if you go for that last hit, there's a very strong chance you aggro the melee creeps and maybe the range creep. So be careful of that. Now, right now, if that does happen to you, like I said, you're probably going to have to run it back. If you want to be really greedy, you could aggro the hard camp to it, and now you're like, oh, now we're going to farm these creeps and the hard camp. You can usually do this if you're in a winning position. If you're in a losing position, you probably ran to the lane and tried to de-aggro here. Now you got some weird stuff going on where there's probably like creeps all over the place, but that's a little harder to get into. Like I said, there's all sorts of possibilities, but I think this covers the basics. Now, actually, real quick, for example, just to show you guys, like if that was their creep, I'm the position 4. I'm very safe back here. I have no idea. How am I ever going to get a last hit? Right? It just doesn't work that way. Now, on the other side of that, look, I'm super safe back here contesting this pull. You know, the carry and the hard support are over here. I'm too scared to face them. But then I get to see, oh, this creep's getting low. Let me snipe it with the spell. Okay. Yeah, oops. But you saw what I meant, right? We're going to go for that big creep. I get to throw a spell out from over here, and I might surprise them. I might get them. Maybe it's an AoE spell. I hit them too. Great. And I'm in a very safe position. So when you're scared, try to contest the camp from positions like these. Though having said that, if you're that worried and you get zoned away from your own pull, that was probably not a very good pull. But sometimes weird stuff happens, so, you know, I'm gonna throw it out there. And let's be honest, no one makes a perfect pull every time. I make bad pulls all the time. So if you find you do get zoned away from your pull, in hindsight, you probably shouldn't have done that. But then we back up to this step where it's like, okay, let me try to safely contest from like back here, try to snipe some stuff, maybe poke a little bit. Because you do have the benefit that these are your own creeps, and if the enemy were to fight you, your creeps would aggro to them for a little bit, but then probably lose aggro quickly and go back to the neutral camp. But at least for that little bit, they'll help you. So the enemy also has to be a little, like, maybe not that scared if they're in a strong position, but it could happen. And that could be a chance for you to play aggressive, like, oh, the neutral camp is about to die, we still have 3 creeps, and the enemy's right here. This is our chance to play aggressive if you're not too far behind, and that's like, you know, 3 creeps actually helps you fight. If you're so far behind that that won't help you, then I don't know, you have bigger issues in that game than pulling. In the last episode, I hinted at the biggest mistake you can make when pulling the hard camp for either side, 4 or 5, or safe lane or off lane, and that's what we're going to talk about here because I think it's probably one of the most important things I could show you guys. But a quick reminder before we get into those clips. Here are the values of a average hard camp or small camp and the creep wave. And keep in mind that the whole goal of pulling is usually 2 things. 1, establish some kind of equilibrium that you want, and to deny golden experience from the enemy while hopefully getting a little bit extra for yourself. The extra for yourself is probably the least important part, but the other 2 are relatively equal in importance. So, if you do a pull, but immediately get pushed off of it, and you end up giving these values to the enemy, so they get the whole creep wave, which they would have gotten anyways, and now they get a bonus hard camp, maybe a bonus small camp, because that can happen too, then that's not very good. That's kind of the reverse of what we wanted to happen. Now, sometimes that trade-off is okay because you still get the equilibrium. Like I said, they're kind of equal importance, and so that may be something you're okay with. But ideally, you don't have to give up either part, right? Sometimes you will, sometimes you don't. So now let's run through those clips, and hopefully that'll give you guys an idea of things you can do to make a pull go well, or maybe why one didn't go well. So here's a pull happening in the first minute. This is the clip you saw in the last episode. The pull happens up here, and now the next creep wave is coming up. So keep in mind what we talked about. If Sand King wants equilibrium, or let's rephrase that. If the off lane wants to sacrifice some resources, like, okay, we'll give them an extra hard camp, but we will then maintain equilibrium in our favor for the next several waves, what you should do here is pull the creep wave up here and then hold it here until the next creep wave comes up, and then you just keep it here. And what can the enemy do? Because you have one creep wave and this next creep wave coming up versus just this creep wave, right? It can stay here as long as you want it to until they start doing some pulls, which is what the 4 support should then go to stop. If you aren't going to hold equilibrium here, then why would you give them a bunch of extra golden experience? Sand King, with his passive, is not really a hero who can maintain equilibrium up here. He shoves the lane whether he wants to or not. So let's play this out a little longer. Now right here, they're kind of split up on what they were doing. So for a little bit, they did get zoned away from the pull. But they really shouldn't have, because it was 2 of them versus a bounty hunter. A level 2 Medusa, level 1 Grimstroke versus a bounty hunter. So they really should have just pushed up here and started to contest these creeps, which they still got here in time for all these creeps. Nothing has died yet. Now Sand King tried to pull the creeps over, which could have been okay, but he lost this range creep, which is unfortunate. If this range creep had stayed, I would still say this is slightly suboptimal because the enemy is still closer than they should be. But let's finish out playing this clip. So you see she ends up actually stealing some last hits because she's able to walk up here and contest. The off lane, actually lost this range creep, which is really bad. Admittedly, a little unfortunate in how it happened. I'm sure they thought that range creep would have kept hitting those creeps, but it's because Sand King went invis. And so in the end, how's equilibrium looking? Well, actually, now there's 6 creeps from the off lane versus the 4 creeps of the Radiant. So what did we get from that pull? Did we get equilibrium up here? No. Did we get complete domination here, where we get a bunch of extra resources and they get denied? No. I'd say it probably went 50-50, and in fact, I think Medusa got the big creep, so she probably won out there. And they now have pretty favorable equilibrium. This lane will not push unless they do something. So I think this was not the ideal hard camp pull. Now it actually happens again shortly after. Now let's point out some good things here. So there's 2 creeps still alive. So going back to that idea, Medusa is busy getting these last hits. So Grimstroke could come out here by himself, but he would be against Bounty Hunter and Sand King, and so Grimstroke would not have a great time contesting this pull. So this pull is probably going to happen because Medusa is busy. However, it's only 2 creeps, and the melee creep was about dead. So in the end, we kept her busy long enough for this pull to happen, but not busy enough that she can't now come up and contest. So what happens again? Sand King pulls back, and look, they feel confident to push up because Sand King has to deal with these creeps, and it's just a bounty hunter here. They walk up a little more. Sand King once again tries to pull them over. Unfortunately, again, loses the range creep. But you see how this isn't going too much different than last time, and in fact, they're even bullying the bounty hunter away a little bit. Now, in this case, all the creeps did die, so that's a little bit better for them. But they aren't really, like, what are they getting out of this pull? Why do a pull if everyone is simply getting more gold? Which is what's happening, because Medusa and Grimstroke are walking up here, and they are getting, everyone is splitting this extra hard camp. So, on one hand, you could say, oh, we're all getting richer, but who does that favor? That favors a Medusa, who just wants golden experience. She doesn't care as much if Sand King also gets it, as long as she's getting more. Not fully true, but kind of true. So it could depend on matchup. Like if you have a really greedy offlaner, they might be okay splitting 50-50 in extra hard camp. But factoring in those losses of the range creeps, this is not good. Now, one final example. Here's another pull happening. Medusa kept busy, so she can't stop the pull. But now Sand King letting these creeps come back. Bounty Hunter left alone versus 2 heroes. Grimstroke close enough for the XP here. Medusa about to be within XP range. They're going to go on this Bounty Hunter 2v1 and kill him here. Sand King tried to come over, use Sandstorm, so we lost the creep aggro of all these guys. This one fortunately went over. So Sand King is now choosing to try to be here for these last hits. Medusa snipes all of them. And now her creeps are dying here. Actually, who's... Oh, never mind. Sand King's the one getting... Actually, I can't tell. The colors are pretty similar. Someone's getting them, and I think it's Medusa. The point is, this was hardly ideal, right? Because those creeps ran by. All of this can just happen when you're playing the game and you don't expect, like, oh, I gotta go help the bounty hunter, all that. How could I have prevented that from happening? Great question. Let me show you how you can prevent that from happening. So now here's a clip of how I think it should go. And I'll admit, I'm super biased here, guys, because this is my own game, and the last one was from a coaching session. But here's how I think it should go. So I know Bounty Hunter wants to pull, and I think I was even encouraging it. I played this game quite a while ago. Don't fully remember. But look, we have 3 creeps because I've shoved the lane in, so Arc Warden is going to be busy. You'll notice he did something pretty good here where he kept the creeps out of the tower because he was expecting the next creep wave to come in. But guess what? Because it's pushed up here, we're doing this pull. And now I'm going to Sandstorm right here. I'm not going to try to pull these creeps back because I want to kill off this whole creep wave because then they will not feel confident pushing forward. If I don't kill this creep wave, they feel comfortable moving up as these creeps push up because they have a bunch of creeps on their side. But because I managed to kill off most of the creeps, this melee creep gets out. This is my bad. This is my big mistake. But look where they are. Compared to the last game where Medusa and Grimstroke over here felt comfortable enough to push up to here, which is within XP range, and then eventually push all the way up to here to actually get gold and last hits, I killed off the creep wave really quickly, and now they feel uncomfortable. They don't feel like they have enough vision besides this melee creep, which I should have killed. This is the mistake. And look where the pull is. 2 of my creeps are dead. The whole hard camp is now dead. Great. They didn't get any of that. They are still going to get 2 creeps, but before, what were they going to get? They were supposed to get this whole creep wave. So now they're just getting half of that, 2 creeps. And what did we get? We got, or the bounty got, the hard camp. Now, I actually wanted him to just pull again here. I don't know if I said it, but I think he should have just tried to pull again because we have a big creep wave and it's just more so the same situation, right? How is he going to come contest this pull when he has to get 5 creeps here? Now, on one hand, this looks kind of good, and Arc Warden's probably feeling okay. He's like, oh, 5 creeps. I'm pretty happy with that. But if we use that time to deny 5 creeps, if you think in the grand scheme of things, not that the 5 creeps right now, over 3-4 creep waves, he was supposed to get 16 creeps. But we denied 2, and then we could deny another 2 here, which means instead of 16, he gets 12 creeps. So I'm giving him some last hits here to keep him busy to then deny more overall with this hard camp pull. Except Bounty got distracted by a courier, I think. So I tried to do my own pull, but I'm too slow. Now here's another example. I try to kill these creeps up here. I stacked the camp earlier. Now this pull's happening. I make a bit of a mistake. I pull it back. I shouldn't have done this, in my opinion. I should have just killed them up front. Because if I'm right here sandstorming, they don't feel comfortable to push up. If I kill the creeps back here, they should feel a little comfortable to like start moving up a little bit. So I kind of realized my mistake and then started to try to kill the creep wave off really quickly. So you noticed, because of that, let's go back. Look, where are they? Arc Warden feels awful in this lane. He's actually going to go jungle. Lion, he's trying to like stack his own camp to like start doing their own pulls. But you see at this point, it's already going wonderful for us. I have a bunch of last hits. He has some last hits. But keep in mind everything we've denied from this pull, from the last pulls, all of that. So it's okay to shove the lane in a bit sometimes. And this is why, like, this is why Dota's hard. Because you're like, oh, I'm not supposed to shove the lane. Oh, I am supposed to shove the lane. It's tough, I know. But if you have someone like Sand King who can instantly, not instantly, obviously, but like very quickly kill off a creep wave, then you can do this kind of play where Sand King keeps killing creeps up here, keeps the enemy busy, and because of that, they can't stop your 4 support, the Bounty Hunter, from just constantly doing pulls. getting XP from the hard camp while denying XP. And if they did try to come out and contest, then guess what? I killed the whole creep wave, so I get to run over here and fight. And if they come to contest, they're missing creeps. If they did successfully kill all the creeps, then guess what? It's me and Bounty versus, in this case, Lion and Arc Warden. But I also have creeps here at this camp. So as we fight over this camp, if this camp dies and they draw creep aggro, now it's me, my support, and our creep waves versus just the enemy heroes. So who is likely to win that trade? We are likely to win that trade. And all of this starts off of shoving in the wave and then doing these kind of pulls. I guess there's many ways to like reach this scenario, and that's why it's hard to cover them all. But I thought this was a pretty straightforward example, and so that's what I wanted to share with you guys. So that is it for this video. I know there's probably a lot of other scenarios that you might need for contesting pulls, but it kind of gets outside the scope of a single video. I think what we covered here really does cover a lot of basic questions I get about contesting pulls, and a lot of these come up in many of the games I play. I know depending on the matchups, depending on what each hero wants, you might have something a little unique, a little different, and I don't know, feel free to ask questions. I'll try to help out as I can, but some of these you just kind of have to figure out on your own, you know, like you get a feel for it. I think what's here will help you in a lot of different scenarios though, so I hope it does help. Most of this is a summary just to remind you of what we talked about, but 2 extra points at the very end there. If you are doing some of what's in this video, you're moving in and out of sight, you're trying to keep them busy, stuff like that, but then somehow they still stop your pull every single time, you might want to grab a sentry because they may have a ward. And if, like, maybe they don't, maybe they're just, like, really on point, you know, that happens sometimes, but if they're acting like they see everything you're doing, then there's a chance they are seeing everything you're doing, and you might as well grab a sentry. They're only 50 gold right now, so maybe you get the D ward, maybe you don't, but that might be why they're stopping your pulls. Now, if you do all of that, and you still can't get a pull off, they're still stopping you, then just don't. Stay in the lane. Hit your own creeps. I've been working on this point in the past. I think I spent a lot of time trying to do pulls when there was a low chance at them, and I think it led to me being overly passive. And so what you can do instead, if you decide, look, it's going to be hard to pull in this lane, I'm just going to hit my own creeps when they fall below 50%, because it still accomplishes something very similar to pulling. Why did we pull? We want equilibrium in our favor. If my creeps die off first, that's pretty good for equilibrium in my favor. I want to deny resources from the enemy. If I get denies, I am making them miss out on the last hit, so no gold for them, and they only get 50% XP, so I'm kind of accomplishing what I need. You know, I'm not getting extra resources for myself, which is what you get from the pulls, but you're not giving them any when they contest you either, so in the end, you still accomplish something very similar. And let's say it's the 4 support who's been camping in the jungle a bit, waiting for you to pull. Now you're just in the lane hitting creeps, then they have to walk over because they're like, oh, I guess we're just playing the lane. And then you walk over to go do a pull. And if they leave to chase you, then you just come back to hitting your own creeps again. And if they spend too long waiting for you to try to do a pull, the offlaner's going to get annoyed. They're going to be like, you're such a useless support. Ping, ping, ping. They're going to get mad. And you're just like, I'm just here hitting creeps that fall below 50. Dar. You know, just give it a shot. It's actually been working out quite well for me. And then if you establish a lead like that and you can bully them out, maybe you can now go force a pull. Or maybe you can get a kill and then do a pull, you know? So the chance to pull will almost always come eventually. But for a given, you know, period of time, if you can't do a pull, then just try hitting your own creeps. Thanks for watching. Hope this helps. Feel free to leave any extra questions in the comments below as always. And I'll see you in future videos. Goodbye!